let's get back again to retrogrades. Today, it's a very interesting topic called sexuality and retrograde planets. So, how does retrograde planet affect our sexuality? Now, we have already turned it out that retrograde planets are very different from the original or rather the direct planets. How does a direct planet differ from retrograde planet? We've covered it in the previous videos. Have a look at that. Now, if I have to say that there are few planets which do affect our sexuality a lot, which planets would prop up in your mind? I would say that it has to be Venus and Mars. Men are from Mars and women are for Venus. If you've not read this book, read it. It is an eye opener, gives you a lot of points to work on. On a serious note, getting back, if we do come across certain planets which really do make an impact on our sexuality, it has to be Venus and it has to be Mars, primarily so. Now, why does Mars and Venus affect us? Venus is the one that gives us that emotional feeling, watery planet that it is. It gives us the feeling of security and it gives us a lot of affection and love, being the owner of the second and seventh houses of the natural zodiac. Not to forget that Venus is also in Big Bull when it is placed in the fourth house in a chart. And fourth house is essentially the emotional house of the chart. So keeping all these views in mind, apart from the fact that Venus is beauty personified, Venus plays a very strong role in a man's chart because it defines the woman in his chart. Now Mars. What does Mars state? Mars is the first and the eighth lord of the natural zodiac. So Mars is the sexuality in a male female's chart. Mars defines the drive in a female's chart that helps her to have a conjugal bliss with her spouse. Now, this is a very interesting point, but let us move ahead and explore a lot more about Mars in a female's chart. How does Mars react? How does Mars work? What does Mars do? Before we go on to that, let us get a few things clear on the way. The first thing that Mars does is provide a very high energy in a woman's chart. It makes her literally very, very aggressive. If this aggression is not properly channelized, it can lead to a lot of problems. Mars retrograde in a male's chart in a position that it is placed could also have a lot of effect in the male, which we will be seeing by way of an example. So as we move ahead, let us take out another example here, another point here to work out on. That fact is that Mars is also awareness. Now let's take a small pause here and let us have a look. Retrograde planets do come with a small percentage of awareness, self-awareness. So that's quite a high for all of us because we have the ability to work out the way we want to work things out. Not that we really use that free will or energy that retrograde planets impart to us. But that's a matter for another conversation, another discussion. But retrograde planets do come about with a small amount of awareness. With this awareness, we can create a world of difference in our lives. Mars actually also gives us, being an energetic planet, in fact being the highly energetic planet in the entire solar system, gives us a very strong impetus to do things the way we want to do them. But being retrograde, this Mars also is accompanied in women with a lot of aggression, as I've stated earlier. So what does this aggression do? How does it manifest itself? We will see that in the charts to come. Let's take up a few charts here. Now, the first chart that I would like to take up would be of Pearl Bailey. Bailey Pearl has been a huge influence in the music industry, starting at singing in the choir of her father's church at the age of 3. She went on to become one of the icons of stage singing in America. Now, there are so many stage singers. What makes her so special? Apart from being married for 5 times, which is a feat in itself, but She had a heart problem, a debilitating heart disease which lasted for 30 years of her career. However, she continued to sing. In fact, it was not unusual to find her singing and dropping down on the stage for lack of oxygen. Given oxygen, she would again stand up and say that she needed to complete her stay on the stage and would get on with her act. Now, if that is not aggression, if that is not energy, let's find out what is. And the fact that she was married for 5 times accounts for Mars being retrograde in the fifth house of love and affection. So, this Mars gave her the impetus to get married time and time again, finding true love for her. Finally, she found true love with a man younger than herself. Now, this is another trait that we need to consider for a retrograde Mars in a female's chart. They do find affinity with a younger man because probably the energy involved, if nothing else. That's something that we need to work on, we need to find, we need to investigate further. Now, it also happens that retrograde Mars can show a different side. It can lead to frigidity also. As it leads to huge amount of sexual energy, it also can lead to frigidity. So let us check that out. But however, if this energy finds an outlet, such people, such ladies would not mind not getting married at all. Another example, before I move on to a very strong feminist example, I would like to take you up with an example of Arthur Gavin. Arthur Gavin has been one of the leading members of the gay movement in America. He has a retrograde Mars in the fifth house of the natural zodiac, the fourth house for his chart because he's a Taurus Lagna. Now, this retrograde Mars for him sits in the fourth house of emotions, the fourth house of public platform, and the fifth house of the zodiac, again, which is Leo, and as such denotes power. He had a huge amount of power because of, and he wrote beautifully such that his book article went out of publication. He had such a beautiful writing to work on, and he wrote on circles of sex. A huge amount of fan following that he had, and he was a maverick to the core. He was a well-known figure in the cult of the gay society, and he lived up to his image. He had a very colorful image to live up to. So it does, retrograde Mars also shows a very strong side even in men's chart, not just a female. However, since it is a gay chart, it needs a double mention. Final example in this is a very well-known author, and she is Louise Alcott, better known as Louise May Alcott. She has been the authoress of Young Women. She has been a phenomenally successful authoress, and with retrograde Mars in her 10th house, she was born to write feminist subjects. She was born, all her novels have been feminist in nature. Though never married, she poured on all her aggression, all her energies into her writings. So we see that how Mars retrograde in special affects a female sexuality and how it shows up the aggression. If you want to know how this aggression can be worked out, how this aggression can be manipulated, how this aggression can be put into good use, and how this energy can be channelized, stay tuned on the same page. Thank you so much for being with us.